Hello, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me clearly. We would like to thank you for joining us for the 8th edition of the Annual Investment Meeting webinar series in partnership with WIPA. My name is Prashant Udrani, conference producer for AIM, and I'll be your MC for today. The Annual Investment Meeting is the largest investment platform in the world, an initiative of the UAE Ministry of Economy. AIM has been promoting a healthier global economy by linking investment opportunities to fast-growing economies under 6 key pillars: foreign direct investment, foreign portfolio investment, small and medium enterprise, startups, and future cities, with a special event, One Belt, One Road. We would like to thank our sponsors, Islamic Cooperation of the Development of the Private Sector, for sponsoring today's webinar. Just a few housekeeping notes before we get started. If you experience any issue with your audio or video during the webinar, just refresh your browser and that should take care of everything. We would suggest using Chrome, Firefox, or Opera. If you have any questions during the panel discussion, please type them into the question box in the control panel on the right-hand side of your screen. If the question is addressed to a particular speaker, please do mention their name at the start of the question. If you like a specific question, vote for it under the questions tab so we can address it to our speakers. During the webinar, we will be running live polls located besides the question tab. We would request you to participate by casting your votes. In the webinar today, we'll be covering the topic facilitating capital flows into SDG-related projects and the role of IPAs in a post-COVID-19 era. Our speakers will be covering the following points: the existing best practices for investment promotion agencies, the impact of the current crisis on IPAs, further opportunities to enhance the role of IPAs in attracting impact FDI, how to achieve the Agenda 2030 in a post-COVID era. Before I introduce today's speakers, I will publish the first 3 polls. I would request you to please cast your votes by accessing the polls tab, which is on the right-hand side of your screen. The first poll is: what should the most important services offered by IPAs to their clients currently be? Provide information, learn businesses' main concerns and assist them, help businesses to maintain supply chains, offer incentives to businesses, or help businesses to access public support funds. Second, do you think the role of IPAs should be more important, remain the same, become less important? And the last one, do you think in a post-COVID era, there should be more focus on SDGs, same focus on SDGs, or less focus on SDGs? You can access the polls tab is on the right-hand side of your screen. You can access it from there. While everyone is responding to the polls, I will go ahead and introduce our speakers for today. In today's webinar, we are joined by His Excellency Fahad Al-Gargawi, CEO of Dubai FDI and President of WIPA, Mr. Deepak Bangla, Managing Director and CEO of Invest India and Vice President of WIPA, Mr. Bojan Skalar, Executive Director of WIPA, and Mr. Dushyant, Vice President of Invest India. Your Excellency, Father Gargawi, I would now invite you for your presentation.
Thank you very much. While we're, first of all, I'd like to thank you at AIM for, bringing everyone together for this important meeting, and I'd like to give my regards to my Mr. Deepak and Mr. Bosian. And hello to everyone and all our audience. I hope everyone and their families are and safe and sound and keeping well in these difficult times. It's always difficult when you come to a place and you don't see the next future that we are always asked by our government to have an insight of, to have always some sort of clarity, which is not available today because of what we are facing, something that never been faced in the last 100 years maybe, and close to so many people called that this is close to a war, but we are not in a war. maybe there is a war with a hidden enemy. But we are saying always, when such time comes, there are opportunities as well. Our role at WIPA and as well as our direct agencies that we work for is to give insights and address our governments with different possible areas that we could shape and define for the future of our investment and the future of the overall the environment of our investment in our different locations. And this time we have to look at something beyond the norm. We have to look at the well-being first of people before going to the investment itself, the well-being of the families of these people, the well-being of so many different people around you, from government to first responder around this difficult time, and then also the investors who are and private sector who are also affected heavily in this time. We need to make sure that they are really having the right information, knowing the maximum that we can give them and feed them with different type of information, as well as making sure that well-being and safety is very important. In such times, we are also will be looked by our government be as agencies and this assessment.
I'm sorry, I think we lost Mr. Fahad. I think there was a disconnection from his line. We'll just try to reconnect and we'll try to get him back on stage. Yes, Mr. Fahad, we can see you.
Yeah, sorry for different
Mr. Fahad, I think there is some issue with the connection. I'll just remove you from the stream. I'll invite you back in again.
Hello.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I think it's more about the facilitating capital flows into SDGs that we are relating to projects that are coming. Governments right now would look into, and their agencies, they would look at what is next for us into restoring the investment environment. Global numbers we know are shrinking day by day. The latest one that we got from UNCTAD was 40, but I guess we are going to even lower number the more the time takes. But we have to look at what areas we need to look into. Are we going to have the same strategies that we used to have? Everyone suggested that the world after COVID will not be the same. We understand this. But what that translates into investment? It translates, in my opinion, as something new that we need to take care of. It will translate that we need to make sure that our investment here is not only into the investment that we used to know. It has to go also investment into the overall, I think it's the overall well-being of people as we are going into investment. So for that, I will go with one thing that I think is going to be very important right now, which is the investment with impact, or what we call in Dubai, and that is a program that we have started. Hello?
Yes, Mr. Fahad, we can hear you.
Yes. A program that we started with Dubai FDI, as well as with the WIPA last year, or in early 2019, and the program called Impact FDI. This was an FDI that we think would need a different way than what we are seeing right now. It's an FDI that would want us to really look into whatever we are developing in a much different way. And this is where I would like to share with you something here that it might be important to showcase. If you will give me, can I suggest something here?
Yes, Mr. Fahad.
Can you go with another speaker? So I think I need to change my location.
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah, sure.
And I will resume later. No problem.
Sure.
Right. Go ahead, please.
Mr. Deepak, Mr. Bangla, if we can go with your presentation.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Mr. Deepak.
Oh, thank you. We're losing Fahad, but Fahad, we'll wait for you to come back. What I thought, Dushyant and I thought, we will just break it into two parts. And if you'll indulge me for just about 5 minutes, on how we pivoted Invest India from its original role for the past few days of COVID. And let me just tell you, today is day 51 of the lockdown in India. And just imagine, it's the largest ever lockdown in human history. 1.3 billion people across the country locked down. And this lockdown was announced on a very short notice. So the complexities were huge. And what was interesting is, just 36 hours before the lockdown was announced, by the way, none of us knew that it was going to be just 36 hours. The team was just doing its morning call and decided that COVID is coming. There are going to be a lot of questions for the corporate world to see how do we go through this entire interesting period. Let's start a portal where we can start getting this going. So initially it started off by just answering queries. That is what we were prepared for. And you know what was interesting? So now on day 51, you will see we've done about 7,000 queries, 6,000 resolved, all within 4 hours. So the team used to work 24/7. But what was interesting in this entire exercise is that to a large extent, it became a feedback mechanism for the government too, as to where the issues were coming. You know, for instance, when we had a lockdown initially, curfew passes had to be given out. It's, all of you know the complexity which we work with in a federal structure in India. So the last constable on the road, how he will interpret the law is completely different. Or what is an essential item? How do you issue those passes? Helping companies to come back into business, or those essential items to move through, pass through very quickly. So those were the first kind of elements. And what used to happen we used to keep checking what is the nature of those queries and taking it back into the system. And then you had the government also responding very quickly to that. So it became a very good response mechanism for the entire system. That was one. The second is we had a very active social media system going on. So every day there used to be a discussion as to what were those tweets which had the highest interactions. For example, we had the ones which said, define what is essential item, were the kind of tweets which were really being looked at. So we went back into the government and saw that we needed better definition of essential item. Then we came across a set of tweets which got more traction, which is people were wanting to know, especially the startups and MSMEs, how can they go ahead with their business? So, tweets related to that started getting a higher engagement. So then we started doing webinars with specialists coming in and sharing their views. Then we had a time where tweets started coming in on, they were wanting to hear more good stories. How somebody got saved, how things started getting resolved. So I'm seeing in the past 2.5, 3 weeks, when people started getting locked down for too long psychologically, the good feel good factor stories were the ones which are getting more traction. So we started getting those more into the field. Now we are starting seeing a larger number of queries on how do we get out of this? How do we resurrect the business? So again, that is what we've gone into the system and working more towards. So it has given us the mood of the people as we progress through this very uncharted territory. And as we all know, a situation which has no playbook. So this constant feedback which started coming on our portal was of huge interest. The second element which started happening, so this was one set of elements. So the government of India had set up 12 task forces to take care of different aspects of challenges through this. So there would be a task force on medical equipment. How do we get that? And we all know that that was a big challenge for everyone. How do you get the logistics moving when everything has been clamped down? How do you get business restructuring going? That is another third one. Similarly, there were 12 task forces with different, and our team was engaged with each of those government task forces to see how those things could be taken care of. And one of the most interesting elements in these 51 days is, PPEs and medical equipment and ventilators is now in the shortest supply in the world. It's very difficult to source it even globally because virtually most of the manufacturers are shut, and you just have 1 or 2 countries where you're dependent on, where everybody is going there. And please understand, with 1.3 billion people, the numbers which I require are humongous. This is where the team came into play. What we started doing, we drew up on the strength of the startup movement and the innovation movement in India. So, in a period of 48 months, we started the startup movement in India just 48 months ago. Today, we are number 3 in the world in number of unicorns, number 2 in the world in number of startups, and number 1 in the world with new startups adding every day. We caught up on this movement. We had people who had the innovations. The team went and found them out. We had these innovators, then get them connected to industry. For example, somebody who could make a ventilator, we would get them connected to an automaker. So we could use their assembly line to make ventilators. Moving to a hosiery maker to try and get masks made. Moving to a textile goods manufacturer to get PPEs done. And at the same point of time, seeing that the logistics of importing those raw materials, whatever that little is required from globally, that had to be done. And mind you, where everything is closed the entire world, it's not easy to get that going. And let me tell you, 50 days ago, India weighed virtually 0 PPEs. Today, we are doing about 200,000 PPEs a day. This is the pace at which Invest India worked with the government to make these things happen. And we are doing that internally. Let me tell you, we needed test kits. Where do we source them from? And a test kit has multiple parts. So again, working through the entire MSME community, working through the entire other structural part of government to try and bring all these pieces of the jigsaw together. I think the team worked day and night to make that happen. Now where we are, now the team is working very actively on creating the plan for business resurgence. To us, COVID is now one of the biggest opportunities. The HCQ tablet, we've just supplied it to 123 countries in the past 47 days. We find that India today is very well in a position to not just be the pharmacy of the world, but also to provide medical equipment to the world. We are in that position where you would see about 60 to 70% of the global financial transactions were all of them being executed out of India, global financial transactions. We ensured that that business remained with a continuous factor by protecting it from COVID itself. All the employees putting in a protocol so that the world's financial transactions go uninterrupted. That is a huge faith and trust factor which is coming back to India. We are seeing that entire digitization, telemedicine. So what I'm just saying is that to us, there is a completely new set of opportunities which are opening up based on the traditional strengths of India and now the new opportunities coming up. And this is where the idea today is that all of us, our IPA families, how do we work together to strengthen each other, to share our experiences of how we had to pivot our own businesses, how we had to help other businesses pivot. So for example, we pivoted what an IPA was doing. Traditionally, my entire work was only promotion and facilitation. We pivoted ourselves to getting manufacturing done and that entire stuff. But how do we help business pivot their businesses in a short period of time? And how do we all fit in together our efforts so that that jigsaw gets a shape in place? This is what we are now trying to work with, and we look forward to working with all of you. I have my senior colleague with me, Dushyant, who will share with you a few things on SDGs, which is what we are all here to discuss. So sorry for taking this little time with you, but thought we will share with you how we pivoted ourselves. Dushyant, all yours.
Deepak. Very quickly, I just wanted to, zoom back 3 years and talk about, the whole Millennium Development Goals. And I must say that India has been able to, achieve a lot as far as the MDGs were concerned. So when we talk about halving the poverty headcount or elimination of the gender equality, those are the sort of areas where, we were able to do a lot. But as we move from the MDGs to the Sustainable Development Goals, it does present a number of significant challenges for us. And what becomes important is that with this whole economic growth that we have been getting, it's important that it trickles down to the bottom of the pyramid, becoming more and more inclusive. There is a lot of income disparity. A little bit of the numbers that you see across this slide, you would see that there is a good amount of work which needs to be done. But and also specifically just highlighting that there is a gap of almost $500 billion per year that we are looking at when we look at as a country, achieving these SDGs. But I must again go back and look at what how the government has really made this whole SDG thing as a centerpiece of their agenda. And when we look at a number of these initiatives, you would see how they map up with each of the SDG goals. I just want to throw in a couple of numbers here. Maybe what all has happened in the last 4 to 5 years. But each minute, when I talk about financial inclusion, 148 bank accounts opened each minute in the last 4 years. 272 broadband connectivities each minute in the last 4 years. So this does give us a little bit of reflection on the sort of activities which our government and the sort of mega initiatives which they have talked about. Simple things which nobody cared about, cleanliness, and that sort of got transformed into such a big initiative in our country. And if I can say, it did help our honorable Prime Minister win this current elections. These are really things which are at the hearts of people. But I must say again, SDG is something which is really the centerpiece of the government's agenda. As the National Investment Promotion Agency, we have also worked on the whole SDG thing in a fairly holistic manner. We do have, what we have, these 7 pillars. We do have, Mr. Bagla, while we have our Honorable Prime Minister's commitment, we also have, our chairman and our managing directors, commitments to this whole thing, because till the top level commitment is not there, you really need to have, alignment of resources to each of these activities. And I must compliment, Mr. Bagla for giving us this leeway. We go back to him with a good idea, and he's like, let's just go ahead. So in this presentation, we'll reflect on to, some of these very interesting, pillars of SDG which we have. And the very first one, which I must say, is essentially the overall organization's alignment with the Sustainable Development Goals. So we do have a focus on around 30 sectors, but out of that, a number of sectors are very directly linked with the SDG achievements which are there. As in IPA, our two main goals have been grounding of investments and being the voice of the investor. So that really helps us get more and more investments which are aligned with these SDGs. I wanted to pick up on one of these as an example, the renewable energy sector, and we've put up a huge target, 450 gigawatts by 2030. We are standing at 80 gigawatts currently, and Invest India has currently got a pipeline of almost $16 billion of investments, since we have a lot of, some of the FIIs, in this sector. We do have close to 30 companies which are under facilitation, and our focus has been to actually cut across the supply chain to the entire ecosystem, going into things like solar, wind, biofuel. And later on, I'll also talk about, the International Solar Alliance and some of the work which we've done with WIPA on that front. Also, similarly, another sector I wanted to reflect on was infrastructure. And it does present a really, really large opportunity for investors across the globe. But one thing which comes when we talk infrastructure, it's the timely implementation of projects. And that's where, Invest India is spearheading what is called as the Project Monitoring Group, which is a initiative which focuses on, really taking out specific issues, things like land acquisition, forest clearances, or other such things which can, take up. We are talking about infrastructure areas like roads, railways, pipelines, power generation. And just to give again a number there, we have looked at 1,080 projects with a complete total value of $600 billion, out of which $420 billion of projects have got resolved. So, and this is again something which directly hits, any sort of time or money saved on these projects really goes back and gets us, some points as far as the, the SDGs are concerned. Moving on, we have a very focused initiative as far as, the whole, the capital, the sovereign wealth funds, the pension funds. In total, these are $130 trillion of opportunity. But out of this, when we look at the alternate investments, we are looking at something like 20% of this basket. And this is something which we felt is really relevant for a lot of IPAs across the world. Invest India has focused a lot on it. We would request other IPAs also look at this bucket, because when we look at investments going down all over the place, this is one pocket where you will see money still lying there. We initially picked up the road sector, the highway sector, and we could look at long-term lending from pension funds. We were able to really get some really good results, and then we were able to move on to metro projects and all of such areas. So from asset recycling, the other areas there we are focusing on are distressed assets as well as disinvestment. So we are really holding the flag as far as the country is concerned to promote the opportunities which India has to offer in these areas. We're also working with a lot of impact funds now in these sort of spaces. Moving on, what becomes very important essentially is the ability to reach out to investors and present the opportunities, having all of these opportunities available at one place. And that's again one very interesting projects which I would request AIM and WIPA to also pick up globally, which is the India Investment Grid. So today we are being able to really bring out the best opportunities which are available from India in 26 sectors, 69 subsectors. All of these smart city projects in the country are all available on this platform. You have various filters through which investors can search for. And I must say, we've not only had investors, we've actually had investors from 197 countries which have gone in and looked at this platform. We've had 800,000 websites hits on this platform. And the very interesting thing that we are doing now is we are bringing in the whole SDG dimension. So against each project, we will be able to see specific SDG projects which are mapped. Moving on, it's also, we are a federal country. We've got 28 the states in the country, and bringing out their opportunities becomes again very important. So that's again a very clear space where we worked on. some of these states have gone in, they've done some good work in these SDG areas. But when we really pick up the IPA of the state, they've not really been able to convert these into specific investable projects. And that's the space we're really focused on. So, this is just an example. I won't go into it, but it's something as simple as, the stubble burning which takes place and creates a whole lot of environmental issues for the country. So from picking up such projects and really making these as revenue-driven opportunities is what we are focusing on. We're working with various countries on such projects. Again, when you look at India, there is a part of the country, and I'm sure this goes with a lot of other larger countries, where there is not so much of development, and there's a lot of more work which is required, which is essentially I can really see there's a red flag where I need to quickly close on. But very quickly talking about this, so this is essentially the northeastern part of our country where we could see there's a lot more work which needs to be done. So as an IPA, we've again picked up the baton. We are really doing not one, rather 6 to 7 fairly large scale projects to ensure that progress and more investments goes into this region also, and especially connecting them with the East Asian countries. Moving on, Mr. Bagla did talk about the startup initiatives. I will not go into it, but fact is the entire startup initiative in the country is being sort of led on from Invest India. We do have the largest virtual incubator with more than 384,000 startups connected with it, and quite a few things which we're doing. But one quick thing I wanted to mention, that there's a whole lot of focus on women also in this, women startups, women directors being in startups, women oriented programs that we have here. Moving on, again, a fantastic project, which is basically the Prime Minister's Science, Technology and Innovation Advisory Council. This is being created through a cabinet order. We have people from across the world who are into it, chaired by the principal scientific advisor. Invest India is acting as the secretariat and undertaking the project management for these 9 initiatives. And these have come out of a lot of deliberations which have taken place. And this is essentially the direction which our country is going to take for the next 5 years. Each of them has been led by a ministry or multiple ministries. We have involved, industry, young scientists, academic institutions, and each of these initiatives really gets mapped onto more than 5 or 6 SDGs. So two of these missions are essentially led by Invest India, which is the National Technology Commercialization Initiative, and the other one, which is again fairly interesting, which is, I would say, the Waste to Wealth mission, which is essentially about deploying technology at sentinel sites. So we are really looking at industrial waste, municipal waste, water cleaning technologies, river cleaning technologies, air pollution, things of this sort, which really hit on to, you can see this list of SDGs on the side, but you can see almost 14 sentinel sites have been brought out, and these would act as role models for the country. And you would see that, these are again, projects which are really going to have a huge impact on the SDGs. Very quickly on the last slide, and that's where, we've already partnered with the International Solar Alliance, which is, one of the first multilaterals focusing on the whole solar as a space. And that's again, 86 signatory countries, 66 member countries. This is headquartered in India, but the one clear thing, there is a target of $1 trillion, but we could see that IPAs from across the world are not really so much into this place. And that's where we felt WIPA could play a really good and an important role. So we've, joined hands with ISA and WIPA, and we are sort of, taking on that baton forward where, intra-country collaborations, investment promotions, and, capacity building and such aspects. So, we, like Mr. Bagla mentioned, Invest India has really taken a very interesting shape in these last 50 days. And we really, look forward to walking hand in hand with WIPA, with the other IPAs, to take this whole initiative forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Deepak, and thank you, Mr. Dushan, for sharing your insights with our audience. I would like to remind our audience, please do not forget to post your questions in the question tab, which is located on the right-hand side of your screen. We will address these questions after our final presentation. Now, I would request Your Excellency, Father Gargavi, for your presentation. We'll just load it up right now. Yes. Mr. Fahad, for your closure.
Yes, what we were talking about, thank you, Dushyant and Mr. Deepak for the, sharing your experience in here and the different scope of work and planning that India is going on. What I want to take is a little bit macro into what is happening around us. IPAs needs guidance right now. IPAs need to talk into what is happening around them. The most important part that we had so many different plans before. What we can do now, what government want us to really activate, how we can communicate as IPAs with the rest of the investors. And the other question is, what happens to investors? Are they going to be with us? The investors that we talk with and had interest a couple of months ago, are they going to be in shape to really talk with us, or are they going to be? Do they exist now? There are a lot of changes happening, and companies are getting a lot of difficult times and investors are taking that hit as well. We need to really come back and see where we are as IPAs and as agencies that promotes investment, that works with different scenarios with our governments, and make sure that when we are in such times, we number one make sure that our current investors, we work with them to make sure that we support them. These are aftercare programs that need to be deployed to all of them, make sure that they have the right information, they know how much of operation that they can have in such situation, how big is the effect on them, to make sure that those are retained, and at the worst case scenario they can continue for the next phase after COVID. A lot of companies are not looking to make profit just to make a survival. This is very important right now. When we will go back, will it be the same? I think it will not be the same, as many people know. But will we use the same tools? Some maybe, but we need to update our tools. We need to look into something else, something that will gain, some of the losses that we have. A lot of losses we will have is employment. A lot of employees might go out of business might go out of their works because of businesses are getting out. So are we able to bring that while we want to achieve also the SDG goals? We came up in that time actually with 3 years ago with a presentation of something called Impact FDI. Later on, we had an agreement last year with WIPA, and we came to present it at Davos. And we think this is one of the clearest formula that we need to look into. The social element will play a lot of role here. So I would like to go back in 2017 when we initiated that. And this was through His Highness Sheikh Hamdan, the Crown Prince of Dubai, out of Hamdan Center for the Future of Investment. The transforming the Sustainable Development Goals into economic, social, and environment reality or realities will create exceptional opportunities for investors and entrepreneurs worldwide. What have been said 3 years ago, I think, are the key pillars for our development of the SDGs. SDGs main issue is that investors cannot see the money part of it. So if we can make SDGs monetized in front of investors and capitals, then we can score what we want to do. In the current scenario, I think up to now, we didn't see a successful SDG transformation into a money in front of investors. And this is where the lack of, we think, that are there for SDGs implementation. Companies will not come and invest on SDGs and invest in future without knowing that they can make clearly that they can make the right economic gains they think they will. That's why when we developed the goals for the enhancing the contribution of foreign direct investment to sustainable development goals, we had 3 goals that you see in front of you, shaping the future of investment and its impact on human prosperity. That's why the social element is going to be a big focus and for the future, and especially the first 3 to 4 years after COVID, bringing back the losses, people, families who got affected. Are we in the right shape, or we are not? How we can bring back some of the losses and make those families who used to gain out of investment that goes into around the world can come back and see the light out of it, see that there are opportunities for themselves, for their kids, for their education, for the whole contribution. At the same time, we need to enhance the private sector contribution to achieve the goals, as I said, and that will not happen with SDGs without monetizing SDGs themselves. And the third goal is driving investment into sustainable development goal. These are the 3 goals that we think would affect what we need to do. The future of FDI and the nexus that we will talk about is investment, and is no longer about risk and return. And this is what used to be before. It's risk, return, and impact. Do I have the right impact of that investment that will be carried out from the economical gains to social gains, also to environment? Am I taking care of all these 3 pillars? These are the pillars that we will talk about. Our goal, capacity here, is to develop, to have absorptive capacity that will help us developing the pipeline of investor-ready project. Investors and SDGs need something that is ready for them to go into. And I saw some of the projects that you guys in India have put together, but we need to stimulate investors to really see the money part of that, while we want to also put the social element and the environment being taken into consideration. And the institutional capacity is attracting and benefiting from investment related to the SDG sectors, as well as professional capacity, which is about the different models we take into SDGs, the markets, the networks, innovation, about people who will work on these SDGs that need to really carry on achieving the goals. We worked on Hamdan centers or HCFI, Hamdan Center for the Future of Investment, with WIPA a few times ago, and actually in last AIM in year 2019, and to bringing that into a capacity that we built with WIPA, where we were developing this together. What I wanted to really bring into attention that this is one model that we always have, and when you come to looking at how this impact into cities, we started this. I'm giving this an example. I'm not promoting, but just giving that example. We started this in 2011 with a Dubai initiative called Initiative Dubai Green Economy Initiative, that was between the private sector and government sector. And in that time, until later in 2019, we were ranked #1 in renewable energy investment into the city. And this is a city list, not a country list, for your information, part of the Financial Times FDI markets. Why we are saying this? Because if we develop something like that, it will help us to really bring to our cities. Why I'm focusing on cities? Because I believe large development scale into large countries takes time to really bring the right results we need. We came from an experience of a city to really in a city that you could develop. That's why cities like Mumbai, cities like Singapore, Dubai, and I believe Hong Kong, and different cities who are focused into achieving their goals will have it, because you can it is a more of a controlled environment in cities to achieve the largest goals, and then give an example of that to be deployed in the other areas of the country. This is where, for example, we were ranked in where we are on global benchmark. But nevertheless, what I want to bring on here is that investment is about, SDG is about three main pillars. Is investment that has an impact, and this is from now until 2030 that we are bringing impact on economy, and it is an impact on society or social impact, and an impact on environment. We will focus in the next year or two or maybe three on society, because this is the biggest loss that we are seeing. If we are able to bring such impact to those different jobs that were lost, that will have an impact to their families, that will have a circulation back to our economies. We are minimizing many risks here that we are facing right now. I would like also to bring to your attention that while we are doing so, SDG provide a framework, but the implementation we need from cities or countries as well as organizations is to plan a roadmap, identify technologies. Talent will be very important for the future and the finance of projects. So talent is going to be linked with the social element here. If we talk about the finance of project, the type of financing required for SDG goals is not to develop aid nor government spending. We need private capital, and for us to bring private capital, we need private capital to see that these SDGs goals, and I'm bringing back again, needs to be monetized. If they cannot see the opportunity inside and they cannot see the money part, where we also assure them that this is part of your gains out of it, it will stay where it is. In order to achieve these goals, I think SDG framework and every city, community, or nation and roadmap for IPAs plays a pivotal role into that. IPAs are primed to do this and to attract the needed three things: capital, technology, and talent. I will say it again: capital, technology, and talent. We talked about capital. We talked that technology is almost everywhere across all industry. Talent will be the right focus as we are coming after COVID, trying to maintain talent, to try to retain them, and even bring up talent from our markets, as well as attract talent. No one understands this better than IPAs, and they are the best organizations to achieve these goals for their government, as this is part of their daily activities. We as IPAs have always been enablers to create success, to bring experiences, to bring up government attention through the above metrics, if we were able to really achieve them. These are my points, and I'd like to thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your presentation. Now I'd like to invite Mr. Bozjan for his final presentation,
Thank you very much, Prashant. And hello to my colleagues as well, to Mr. President Fahad and Mr. Deepak, Vice President, and also dear colleague Dushyant. I really enjoyed your presentations, and you gave valid points, which I would not want to repeat, but I will try to show it due to, of course, this COVID pandemic issues. And I saw in meantime some good questions as well audience put about how IPA should react further. What are the, let's say, short-term, mid-term, or long-term goals? Shall they reshape their structures, their ideas? I had an interesting interview yesterday, and it was said that IPA should go out of comfort zone and be really focused on investors and try to assist them and putting it in place, all necessary actions, what they can do to help them. So we did a short survey, especially seeing these numbers that UNCTAD is saying 30 to 40%, which might lead up to 21, but now even the numbers, the recent days, are shown that even it can go 50% or more, the drop of the global FDI, which is concerning for all of us. But in any case, we tried to do a survey last month. It was around 15 questions, and we got over 50 responses from IPAs, how they are doing it, what measures they have taken. And we've seen already, let's say, examples from Dubai and from India, and there are many more. This is also why we established, for example, a platform on our webpage to be able to assist to members, to showcase to others, to other peer colleagues, and to be able to share their experiences, which is one of the main mandates, of course, of WIPA. And we ask, as I say, a couple of questions. So what was the expected, let's say, impact of COVID-19? The whole idea was how to prepare IPAs to react post-COVID era. And I would be able to answer to this in the, let's say, second part of the presentation. So obviously, they were asked how they experienced this withdrawal of, for example, investors due to COVID-19 outbreak. And it shows clearly that 62% did not experience withdrawal of investors, especially the ones who were acting quickly and I would say proactively were pretty resilient. But 38% still experienced, let's say, the drop. So the long term, while as you can see here, some of them says, the majority says 20 to 30%. But as I said, it's already clear that this number will be higher, but nevertheless, it might differ from country to country, from region to region. And this paper clearly shows what were the responses of the IPAs. But this was, of course, maybe 2 weeks ago. Now, of course, the numbers have changed, but this is how it works. In the next slide, it was on the what kind of forms of FDI IPAs report the most, let's say, hit or the most impact of the COVID. And naturally, of course, it's the Greenfield FDI, because we all know that Greenfield is also, all decisions that are taken for the Greenfield are also with the site visits, with location visits, which are currently cut. So there are no travels. And this is obviously 43% of IPAs see this as the biggest impact. And then let's say as well, expansion of FDI is seen as a cut, so which gives a very clear message that the quick response and aftercare and let's say any kind of facilitation information is very important to be able for the current investors to be able to consider the re-expansion after the COVID crisis. For the sectors, we asked them as well, so what sectors are the most affected? As we all know, it's, let's say, hotels and restaurants, services in this kind of areas. And then, of course, tourism and hospitality as well. Then it comes 38% manufacturer and services in construction. And then as well, same number, real estate. Of course, all of this, as our colleagues from UNCTAD showed, is as well, of course, the very big hit onto the energy sector, which is all interrelated with the sectors that are shown in this graph. Biggest concerns of businesses. So our clients, the ones that we are serving and we are trying to help. So how IPAs got, let's say, making different surveys, different calls, webinars, proactive role, asking businesses how they are the most impacted. As I guess we would all agree, disruption of supply chains. Because of all limitations, the supply chains will be either shortened, will be reshort, will be near short, or how is it called recently. So the supply chains are a pretty big concern, which is shown not only from our survey, but supported from all intergovernmental institutions. Liquidity, so cash flows, demand decrease, 34% IPAs realized from their existing investors, and clarity of new regulations. So it means that information that IPAs provide to investors is a crucial one to understand how the regulation will work. We know that many governments put a lot of packages, incentive packages, any kind of supports. But these regulations and these packages should be very clearly informed to, or let's say sent to the companies to be able to understand it properly, not to have later disputes, for example, towards states. Support offered by IPAs to their clients during the COVID-19 outbreak. We saw some good examples, so I will not repeat them, but obviously providing information via website, email, or any kind of measures were the most crucial and the most important. And whoever, let's say, from FDI perspective, whomever IPA was serving this and providing enough quick information and being proactive, investors found it very useful and they really appreciate it. We all know that webinars are becoming the new reality. So we are just having one and it's getting on and on every day. So webinars, e-meetings, presenting, let's say, potential projects online, helping them as well through this assistance, or as we saw in the Invest India 24 hours assistance to, let's say, any kind of questions that investors or other stakeholders might have. E-guidelines, very clear messages, offering some incentives to businesses to help them to overcome these difficulties. Further on, we ask support to their governments. We know that IPAs are very clearly supporting the governments as well. They are not just supporting investors, but supporting governments. As our president just said, IPAs are the most crucial bodies, especially now, more than ever, assisting, let's say, two biggest, let's say, constituents for the investments, which are, of course, they will support governments. They will try to assist them any kind of things. Of course, in the beginning, they were assisting them with the health concerns, providing the equipment, let's say protective equipment, sanitary equipment. But on the other hand, especially after the COVID, it would be the biggest role would be how to structure the policies of the countries to be able to address these challenges that will come after it. It will not be just economic crisis, but it might be social crisis. And the impact of the social component would be also a big one. Then, of course, helping public health sector in finding additional workforce. All these things were or are still useful for the governments. And now, as I said before, the main of this paper was to make, let's say, recommendations. And the short term was, of course, providing comprehensive information via email, website, and other, let's say, channels. E-guidelines to businesses on public health measures taken during the pandemic. Assist businesses in understanding and applying new measures. Maintaining supply chains. Trying to find support funds. Preparing the, let's say, governmental packages. Financial, fiscal, you name it. Then, of course, using the potential of new technologies to improve the efficiency. And this is obviously that this will be a great opportunity for IPAs to digitalize themselves, if not yet up to this stage, because more or less everything will go into the digitalized manner. Also being able to provide clients and contacted them and providing them, let's say, virtual visits of the site, of the locations. Obviously, now the investors will be checking, and they are still checking. So the platforms were already invented that the people will be able to see, the investors will be able to see potential sites, potential infrastructure and everything. And later, when the situation normalizes, they will be able to visit the locations and they will be able to make a final decision. So the IPAs and their governments will be ready and prepared to make the deal done after the COVID. Mid and long-term recommendation actions, rethinking investment promotion strategy and channels to be used for promotion, rethinking the organizational structure even maybe. Maybe there will be a need to put a budget relocation, maybe to put more emphasis on the aftercare, to put more emphasis on the let's say, strategy, more emphasis on the policy advocacy, bringing back all what we learned from the pandemic and from the crisis back to governments to reshape the governmental strategies and, of course, as well the strategy of the IPA. Reprioritization of target sectors. So now we all know that there will be a lot of sectors that will come, artificial intelligence even more. All these new sectors will come in the forefront, whatever is digital economy. So the prioritization of sectors might change. So startups and innovation companies, these small companies will be more than ever useful because they are the one who think proactively and who are bringing new ideas and new platforms in the forefront. Local connections. So the backward and forward linkages will be more than ever important, connecting, let's say, local economy with SMEs and with existing investors, preparing the, let's say, and setting the tone for the post-COVID era. Implementing cost-efficient targeted image building campaigns, digital transformation, so strengthening of existing digital investment promotion practices, upgrading website. Everyone actually should think about it. Upgrading website, embracing digital marketing and data analytics. Yesterday I also heard a very good point actually. So everything, when we want to prove ourselves as an IPA, is the data. It's a good quality data. So all this technology will help also IPAs to be able first to collect enough data and then to be able to distill the data into the shape that will be able to be used for the further strategic orientation and the further actions and what will be then implemented into the plans. SDGs, as we said, more than ever important, might be, there was also one question I saw in the audience, might be a need to be a bit reshaped, but what we definitely believe is it should be that business should come in the forefront as our main client, and the businesses will be the one who will tell to IPAs how IPAs should respond and how they should do it and what sectors they would be willing. And our colleagues from UNCTAD are always saying there are SDG bankable projects. So we should create a pipeline, or IPA should, together with governments, create under their prioritized sectors, they should create a pipeline of projects that will be interesting for the potential new and existing investors, to be able to help them to invest into the sectors that will enhance, let's say, their economies, that will bring also, let's say, gender equality, that will create decent jobs. So all these projects are around. Maybe just the value proposition is missing sometimes, proper value proposition that will lead investors to invest into that particular sector. Then, for example, multi-stakeholder dialogue, we believe is very critical, and VIPA is, I would say, like an umbrella organization of the global FDI and the IPAs, is taking this role and initiative, speaking with all intergovernmental institutions, making some different kind of papers as well, preparing, let's say, support to IPAs in these difficult times to be able to serve the investors properly. So clear rules as well should be prepared for the post-COVID era. Clear strategy, maybe reshaped in some certain levels. Maybe the priorities will be changed. Maybe the main goals will be changed. Maybe the sectors will be changed. And enhanced facilitation. So it means putting more efforts to facilitation, which is also, as you all know, part of the current discussions within the WTO, investment facilitation. Then coordination among the partners. It's not only IPAs which serve under the governmental structures. There are also other agencies, there are other ministries which are crucial for the future of the investments. So a good and coordinated and concerted efforts with all the stakeholders within the country is also very important. And then linkages and technical assistance is important. And this is why we at VIPA, for example, put all our emphasis to try to create, let's say, valuable trainings. Currently, of course, we are trying to do these things online. When it goes back to normal, we will continue with our regular trainings and capacity buildings. And I don't know, I mentioned before, in our webpage, please do see our COVID-19 platform. We are sharing any kind of information from the IPAs. And please do share with us so everyone can benefit. And of course, Invest India and many others shared already. So people can also, let's say, a bit benchmark what other IPAs, other peer colleagues are doing. Under this COVID platform, of course, we are putting a regular information about the pandemic, and we also created all our consultative committee, as you all know, World Bank, ILO, ICC, so all, let's say, UNIDO, UNCTAD, we created their special sections, and we are sharing all the information what the intergovernmental institutions are also recommending to governments and to IPAs. And the paper that I presented now, feel free, please. I guess the colleagues from AIM, the organizers of this, will share with you in any case upon request, but you can always get it actually in our webpage. I will stop with this. I thank again, and please feel free to reach us out anytime if you need any kind of clarifications. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Bozjan. Thank you for your presentation. Actually, the link for the full report, my team members have shared to you in the chat box right now. So you can go ahead and download the report. We will just go through a couple of questions from the audience because we are running beyond time. But I just thought that the audience have participated and they have sent us quite a bit of questions. So I would request our speakers to please go through the questions tab and please select the order by upwards. And we'll just go through one questions for all. So I'm just going to screen through all the questions. Okay, we'll go with the question from Marvin. What will be the theme of investment that IPA will be promoting post-COVID? What SDG projects will be given priority and in what territory? Is it too soon to give this answer, or can anybody answer this question? Mr. Bozjan?
Hello.
Yes, Mr. Fal?
Hello. Yeah, I think there are the question is answered after COVID is because people would look at solutions. So, and government would require IPAs also to look at solutions for them. There will be direct COVID solutions where to rectify what happens, the damages, or make sure that companies are really been taken care of. And I think aftercare is the number one right now and will continue for a while. So reaching out to those investors with you is key. It doesn't need rethinking. It will be two. Phase one, which is the direct COVID implication, what you can do with it. And many countries focusing on the element of medical supply and food sector right now across with technology. The other one would be each country or city or province would prioritize to its own, requirements. There is no one solution here. But what you need to do is look into your inside. Now, no organization around the world, no World Health Organization or United Nations, anyone will tell you exactly what you need. You have those requirements with you. You need to, you already identified some, and it's all depending on the internal market requirements and readiness in that time.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Fahad. I'll just go with one more question. At this current stage, after speaking with IPAs, we have noticed that it's been difficult for IPAs at the current stage to attract new investments. Aftercare is what the IPAs are focusing at, but attracting new investment. Do you think there is a strategy in this current period to attract new investment?
Right now, I think they should do two things. Forget about attraction now, focus on retaining.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of attraction, keep up just talk to companies that you know, that you have been talking to you in the past, let's say 6 months, 1 year, who had interest and they still remember you. Just check on them. Don't sell to them. Check on them if they are in good shape. Check on of them if what they're doing. Check on them if they are thinking about it and how do they think about it. Take market signals from your investors or your network and make a good analysis of it. Then you can, no one will, the big companies who invest right now are known and they will attack you without you waiting for them. They are into acquisition. The ones who you talk to, you have to keep the relationship and communication happening until they are in the right time to really come back. But to really focus on attraction now is not. You can promote, you can give feedbacks, you can network.
Okay. Even if we go through our polls, we can see that many of the respondents also agree with your points in terms that do you think in post-COVID era there should be more focus on SDGs? So that has around 81% of the votes. So there'll be more focus on SDG after COVID-19.
I think if I may, it will not be the SDG on its all, all the elements. Look at it from investment point of view, sustainable investment, something that will fit on SDG, but also will fit on your requirement as a destination, as an IPA, because that sustainable one that will give you multi layer of effect rather than just one.
Okay. Do you think the role of IPA should be more important? 93%, 100%. They think that
101%.
Yeah, I would put it at 101%. And the last poll which we had is what should the most important service offered by IPAs to their clients be? So we have around 43% saying learn businesses' main concern and assist them, and 36% saying offer incentives to businesses or help businesses to access public support funds. Do you have any feedback on this last question?
May I?
Yes.
I would agree with everything what Fahad just said. In any case, I guess current situation, it's not just to give them incentives. Incentives are normally a cherry on the cake, but to try to help them to be safe, to be able to make whatever activities they are doing, the existing investors, to be able to provide it as smooth as possible. And of course, regarding what was said before, what kind of projects or for the new investments, only maybe the ones which are not connected with greenfield, of course, can't be decided now, but maybe some of the like portfolio investment and that kind of investors can still might have an interest, maybe especially in some pharmaceutical sector or health sector. They could still be interested, but they are of course all cautious because the situation is unpredictable. And I guess the SDGs is just the name. It's, let's say, a buzzword, but as President said, sustainable investment everyone should pursue without COVID, even before, because the sustainable investment will help to our communities to develop and to be, I would say, more mature and providing better quality of life for their people. And this is what we should all pursue. And IPAs definitely will become not 100, but as Fahad said, 101% more important and in the forefront. And if I may say, more than ever, IPA should have the advocacy policy role to be able, learning from the experience, the negative experience now, advising governments to create proper policies in the future.
Thank you.
One quick comment, Prashant, from my end. Essentially, when we look at all of these investors, maybe our existing investors or companies that we work with, I would like to specially focus on, companies which are trying to change their direction and, sort of provide solutions for COVID. So for many of them, only a part of this may have been their core business. So, when we look at, let's say, automotive companies today who are trying to make, ventilators or such things, for them, the world has just changed. and the sort of help which they will need is going to be crazy. Simple things, even textile companies who are trying to make PPEs are struggling with very, very small problems. So I think we have to take one extra step for such companies, really give them all of the support required as an IPA.
I agree with you, Dushant. It's let's look at our investors as partners. If they are there with you, they will continue to employ people. They are still surviving with you. They will continue to contribute. If we lose them, we will lose that part from with everything around it, with the employees, with the families, and you will have a multiplier of an effect in a negative way. So just to keep them there, feed them with information. You are part of the government. You need to really inform them what's happening. You need to give them the right information. Sometimes we think everything we have is on digital platform, and everyone will read it. Actually, some of them might not get the right information. This time is also, we have to know there is a lot of noise and rumors around every different community of what to do and what not to do. I'll give you an example. Today, there is an announcement that after inshallah Ramadan, after Eid, they will open up between 40 to 50% of businesses with precaution and. Some companies, even with reading that, might not know the exact terms of how to. So what you create a platform for them to really understand government on their own terms, so they can know how to operate, what they need to do, what they need to address. We created, let's say, an inside of our platform, but we reach to them. We send them the information. Not only it's available, no, this is for you. So treat them as partners, because they are there for you, and they are there who really will make a progress with you later on, and they will take it with them.
Thank you, Mr. Fahad. We are running beyond time right now, so I would like to thank all of our speakers for joining us today and for taking the time out from their schedule to share their thoughts and perspectives with us. I would also like to thank once again our supporting partner, Islamic Cooperation for the Development of the Private Sector, for sponsoring today's webinar. I would also like to thank our audience for joining us and for sharing their questions. The link to today's webinar video and presentation will be sent to you via email. We are also conducting a short survey to get your feedback on today's webinar. The link to the survey will be shared to you via the chat and via email. To register for our next webinar scheduled for the 18th of May 2020, please visit our website, www.aimcongress.com/webinar. Also follow us on our social media channels to keep yourself updated. Thank you all once again. Thank you to our speakers for joining us and for sharing their thoughts and perspective with us. Thank you everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Thank you so much.